thermometer that reads the temperature or the thermostat that sets the temperature. Grand delusions that I could, work around nap time. It's not really the way it works, right? You can have both profit and presence. You can be an incredible mom and have a successful business and a profitable business, but you have to decide that there's some things you're just not going to do. So I have this rule with all my clients of subtraction before addition. And I think it is relevant in our pregnancy. Why is mom always working? And that was kind of like the knife in the gut moment for me. We do it all, rise up strong even when we fall. Dreams in our hands, love in our hearts. This is where the journey starts.
Welcome to Baby Bump and Business, the podcast for creative moms growing a baby and a brand at the same time. I'm your host, B. Troford Wilson, photographer, educator, and first-time mom, sharing the real unfiltered journey of pregnancy, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Each week, I'll be joined by a fellow creative mom to talk about the beauty, the burnout, and the balance of it all. So let's get into it. Today's guest is Lauren Apple. Lauren is the founder of Profit and Presence Co., a scaling strategist who helps CEO parents build businesses that serve their lives instead of consuming them. A mom of 5, she went from making $347 a month to multiple six figures and still closes her laptop at 4 p.m. every day. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you all things business and family. It's going to be super fun.
So, 5 kids in this economy. Let's start there.
Well, I wasn't in this economy when I started out, so it was a little bit different, right? But it's evolved just like the kids.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I love how you spoke about, in your questionnaire, you spoke about how your business changed with each pregnancy. You were able to learn more about your business and what needs to be fixed within your business. So can you tell us about your first child? What did that look like in terms of where were you in your business career? And what was the first thing that you learned that you needed to shift within your business to make motherhood work for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually wasn't a business owner when I had my first 3 children. So it was my 4th and 5th that I was running my business at that time. But my first child, my husband and I were in ministry. We were full-time pastors working in the church. And I had this grand illusion that the baby's just going to come along with me, right? People love babies. They love kids. They'll just walk along with me with things, or I can hand them off to somebody that wants to hold them and they'll be super sweet and kind and all the things. And we all know, right? That doesn't happen. I, did bring my kid to work with me, but I quickly realized that I couldn't manage focusing as mom and focusing on ministry or the job in front of me. Right. And I see that the same in my business today. It's just, we have constraints and we have lack of containers. I find as parents, we try to do it all in one. And in reality, we don't do anything well when we do that. Right. We're not excelling in one area, and our kids are feeling the brunt of it. Our business or our job or our role is feeling the brunt of it at that time too. So yeah, absolutely. I wasn't in my business at the time, but I was doing ministry. And so I had to make adjustments, and every kid is different. My first kid was perfect human, never, complained or cried, would sleep. So he was much easier to carry along with something. Our second came along. They're 14 months apart, and she was so colicky, crying constantly. I only could breastfeed for 2 weeks because I was I can't even handle this with my toddler climbing on things and trying to handle her. And she didn't sleep for the first 18 months, didn't sleep through the night. And so it was just a wild dynamic and change. And I recognized, okay, I need help. I need support. I need a break too, to step away and do the things that I love doing outside of being mom. And so I shifted with that. And I think that's happened progressively with every child that I've had.
Ooh, now I understand colicky. My daughter was colicky, and that was the scariest, hardest thing for me to deal with, where I'm I just need quiet. Please, I'm I'm trying.
Yes.
What do you need? And then the doctor's it's normal. They're going to grow out of it. And it's but you're not prepared for that. And then like you said, it's
No.
Trying to balance being a mother to your other child and still running your business and being in your business. That is very, very difficult.
Yeah. And you feel like you're going crazy, right?
Yeah.
I always, when somebody says to me, like, I never could understand how somebody could shake their baby or something, I'm like, you've never had a colicky child and been sleep deprived, right? Like, I've never done that, but I think that's why support is so important for parents, right? Is that
Right.
we have somebody where we're like, okay, I can't handle it anymore. I'm going crazy. Here's the baby. I'm walking out of here and taking a walk or getting a break or whatever, putting them in a safe spot. But yeah, it's wild. That colickiness is there's something about that cry that just like gets to you deep in
It's
your
like your
soul
eyes
where
start to just twitch, like you're like,
yes,
"Are you okay? I don't
yes,
know."
yeah, it's wild. Yep.
So for you, what was it like in those seasons? What was it like to get the support that you needed, but also the strength to voice the support that you needed?
Yeah. And I think we had like a pre conversation before we started here about being like independent women and not wanting to ask for help. I think that's the biggest thing is to recognize like, I can't do it alone or I can't do it the way I want to do it alone. Right. Like we could try to do it alone, but we end up failing miserably at what we really want to be or who we want to be. I use this example that I once heard about how you could either be the thermometer that reads the temperature or the thermostat that sets the temperature. And I
Ooh.
think when we try to do everything alone and we try to control all the situations, we end up being reactive and we're just the thermometer, right? We're just reading the temperature of the room or the situation or the circumstance instead of being proactive and recognizing, okay, I need support. I have structures in place. I have disciplines. I have ways out. I have people I can ask for help. And that helps me then set the temperature of my own mood and attitude, my own home, be that calming presence that I want to be for my kids and my family.
That's a great analogy. Oh, I'm we're gonna have to clip that because I think a lot of women need to hear that. I know I needed to hear that. So
Yeah.
you went from being a minister. What was it that made that shift to where you realized, okay, I want to do something different within my business or even within my life in my ministry?
Yeah, it wasn't just like a groundbreaking moment. It was kind of a slow evolving. My husband and I were in ministry. We thought we were going to do that for a life. The Lord called us out of that and opened up an opportunity for us to move across the country. And my husband was doing retail management. And if you have ever been in the retail world, schedule is insane. You really can't work around that, right? We had 3 kids at the time. And so I did what all good parents our age do. I'm thinking you're around similar. You're probably much younger than me. But I Google searched, how can I make money from home? And I came across the virtual assistant world. I'd never heard of it, never heard of the online business world. And that's how I started the front ends of my business. I evolved into operations consulting, fractional COO work, and then business strategy and scaling for parents now is where I'm at. But yeah, I searched, I found that, and then that's where I kind of jumped into it and recognized, okay, I could do this around my husband's schedule. I can, make some money, provide for us financially, but also be the present mom that I wanted to be. Now I think again, grand delusions that I could, work around nap time. It's not really the way it works, right? But I figured it out and we set structures and schedules and did all the things.
Beautiful. So I think the one thing, like you said, the nap times. I know for me, the routine is everything. I'm a Capricorn. I love structure. I need to know where I'm going to be at what time. My calendar on my phone is my best friend. And my daughter is just like, yeah, I know you have my nap on your schedule. My nap's not going to be with it. No, we're not going to do that. And it's like, if you could just nap during the time, mommy can get work done. And it's like, she'll look at me like, yeah, no, not happening, But like you said,
Yeah.
it's all about creating these systems and creating these structures whenever you are working from home. So when you started building that business of working from home while still being a mother to 3, what were the things that you had to instill to realize, okay, this is what I need to do to be able to balance this while still being present as a wife and as a mother?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things. And in full transparency, I learned from failures a lot more than I learned from success at the beginning. So I had to figure out what didn't work. And one of the things I discovered is a lot of business advice out there, a lot of productivity gurus when they start giving advice, they're not parents or they're not the default parent, or they have, a wife at home or a husband at home that manages the brunt of things. And so I tried all of these other things that people were doing and they didn't work. Like I just ended up burnt out, feeling like a failure and exhausted, more exhausted than I started. And so, there's lots of things that I implement in my work with CEO parents to do this. But one of the biggest things is to recognize you can't do it all. Like, you cannot do it all. You can have both profit and presence. You can be an incredible mom and have a successful business and a profitable business, but you have to decide that there's some things you're just not going to do. And there's some compromises you're going to make, because you can't be, successful at everything. And so I had to determine, like, I'm not going to be the mom that makes homemade treats for Valentine's every year, or, creates the perfect costume for my kids, or has a gourmet dinner ready for dinner every night. It just is not my sweet spot. It's not my strength. It's not where I want to focus my energies. And so I need to prioritize the things that are important to me and my business and my expertise and my value that I bring to other people, so that I can still be that mom that shows up and has dinner, and is at the dinner table with my kids and is actively present and listening to them, or helping them at their events, or, remembering the Valentine's treats. I forgot St. Patrick's Day this week, so my kids didn't all wear green, but mother failure there. But yeah, just recognizing you can't do it all. That's the biggest foundational piece, is like, you cannot do it all. You can't compete with every other mom out there or every other business owner. You have to do what's right for you and your situation and your family.
So what advice would you give to mothers? Because especially women, we are, I like to say, a little bit stubborn, where we believe that we
Yep.
can do it all. But then also, I speak with like a lot of business owners where they have trust issues with delegating roles in their business, because they don't think that they can do it as good as them, or they're not going to be able to do it the way that they want it to be done. So what advice would you give to a mother who is an entrepreneur or running their business, on being able to be okay with stretching that part of their business so that they're able to get that freedom that they're looking for, so the business isn't running them, but they're actually running the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see this in all areas of our life as we like grow and evolve in relationships, right? Like, when you first get married or are in a serious relationship, you recognize that like your space is not your space anymore. All the decisions that you make about dinner and things like that like involve another person, and it's not all about you, so you can't control it. When you have kids and you try to get them to learn to do dishes, like that was like the biggest eye opening for me, right? Is like, I got to step away if I have somebody else do dishes, because they do not load it right. But if I want to get it off my plate, I got to just be okay with it. And if it doesn't get cleaned, they're going to learn how to load it right, because they're going to have to redo it. Right. And figuring that out. And I think it's the same in our business. Is we think like, oh, we built this baby up from the ground and it is your baby and you did so good with it. But in reality, you have strengths and weaknesses. And there's things that you're doing in your business that are actually holding you back because you're doing them instead of somebody else doing them. Not just time constraints, but even your strengths constraints, right? Like, I am not somebody who checks things off of a list and likes to finish things through. And when I found somebody on my team who loved getting things done, loved pulling things through to the finish line, was okay with doing mundane tasks that drained my energy, it was like eye-opening to recognize, man, this is their sweet spot. They actually really love doing this work, and they can do it so much better than me because they enjoy it and it gives them energy. And here I am trying to like hold on to it, and it takes me way longer, and I end up with a lot more errors, and I'm exhausted afterwards, or I avoid it forever till the last minute because it just doesn't give me energy. And so it's just having slow progress on handing things off, and recognizing that as you do that, you'll see that you actually will benefit from it, not just in your time, but in the revenue of your business, in the finished product, in the way that you deliver to your clients will be better because you're willing to let go of control a little bit.
Ooh, that's a good one. And I think that's the hardest part. I know that's one thing I was able to learn from my mentors, where they're like, be okay with delegating. Figure out what your weaknesses are or what you don't enjoy in your business, and delegate that. And the minute I started doing that, I was able to, even for me during my business, when I was pregnant, my business was still moving because I was able to put a team in place and put systems in place to where it's
Yep.
like, I don't have to keep checking it all the time. And there's someone else managing those different roles, and being okay with that. And I realized, especially as a creative entrepreneur, a lot of us just, it's hard for us to be okay with letting those things go. Like you said, it is our baby. For me, I always say my photography business was my first child, my studio business was my second, and then my actual baby was my third. And now trying to balance all
Yeah.
three of those, it's like, but this one actually has a life that's looking at me, and I have to make sure that it's taken
Yep.
care of, while also maintaining these other two that came before her, but she's still obviously more important. So for you, after your three kids, when did you and your husband decide that you guys wanted to continue to expand your family, but then also what did that look like for your business as your business was still now growing from that your new entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, I think, well, and I told you this earlier before we hit record, but from the time I was 16, wanted to be pregnant. It wasn't about being a mom. It was the miracle of pregnancy and birth. I thought was like the coolest thing. And actually, I loved it so much. And so, if it was just about pregnancy and it wasn't my old age, I probably would keep popping out kids forever because they all get big, right? And then they're past that cute stage. And you're like, where's my little baby that I can carry and love on? But my husband was different. And he, had some opinions about how many kids we have and how many he wanted. And so, it really was just this compromise of recognizing, oh, I'm ready to have more kids, but I had to give him space and time to recognize that, right? Because again, we need support. So I'm not going to pop out another kid without my husband wanting one, right? Because we need to be on the same page to keep our family moving. So I think for everybody, it's just a different situation and circumstance to recognize, like, man, do I have room to expand here or not? Do I have the right season? Some people are really great about like having kids back to back. I mean, I have a 15-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so we have some spaces between some of our kids and their ages. There's some 3 or 4 year gaps in there that happened. Some of that was infant loss and miscarriages. But in the midst of all of that, like you just evolve and work with what works with your family dynamic and your structure and what you can go through. And I still am grieving. My youngest is like done breastfeeding. He's now full toddler mode, out of the baby season, right? And I'm like, oh, I can't believe that's my last. I'm never going to breastfeed somebody again. I'm never going to have baby kicks in my belly again. Like it's just
Right.
it's this grieving process that you kind of go through, but there's also something so beautiful about it too. It's like we're getting rid of all the baby things in our house and all the baby clothes and all the baby supplies that take over everything. And now we get to travel more with our family. And my husband and I get to go and have date nights because our teenage kids can babysit. It's just a different world. And I think you just know it when you know it. You'll go through that and you'll but there's no rush to make the decision, right? Like you can take time. It doesn't have to be something that's super serious or, that you have to, I mean, it is serious, but that you have to make a decision on a timeline, right? You just
Right.
take your time and figure out what works for you guys and what situations you're in and how you want to expand. I think after 3 personally, though, it's just extra noise, extra budget, and extra space in your house. The third was the hardest transition. After that, they just like fit right in.
I think it was beautiful. Something that you said that I haven't heard before was that you're grieving the different stages. So you said you're grieving your 2-year-old that's now in the toddler stage. You're grieving the breastfeeding. And I think one
Mhm.
thing that we speak about whenever we talk about grief within motherhood, it's usually grieving our old life before we became a mother, right? We're usually grieving who we
Yeah.
were before the independence and all that. And then but now you're talking about grieving the different stages that come with the growth of your kids, where it's like they go from the baby to toddler to now teenager, where it's like you're literally watching them grow and it's a beautiful transition, but then you're also grieving those memories of who they used to be, where they used to
Yep.
be in your stomach and you could feel the kicks. And that, and I think that that's something we don't often speak about. Like that's what those
Yeah.
transitions of not just becoming a mother, but now you're watching your child go from a child to a teen and then soon to be adult. And that's another thing, a topic above itself.
Yeah, and I think grief and gratitude can coexist. And I think a
Mm,
lot of times we think it's wrong if it does, but like I'm so grateful for some of the seasons. And you're probably gonna make me cry right now. Here I am in my 40s. I have perimenopause, so I'm just as emotional as I was postpartum. But my teenagers, like there's just a beauty of watching them grow into like their own people and adults and not needing their mom as much. But every so often my 15-year-old boy will come and put his arm around me and say, hey mom, are you okay? And I love you and it's so beautiful. But then there's also, that season of, man, I'm not going to have another baby to shush tonight or to like just sleep on me and I can feel their breathing or smell their baby skin or do all of those things. And so it's okay to miss that. But there's also gratitude of like, hey, I have this incredible opportunity to steward this relationship as this kid grows. And it's just unbelievable to think like, I know your baby's 5 months, but like to look at my 15-year-old and remember that he was this little tiny peanut is just like wild. Absolutely. And I know people who are even past my season are looking back, they're empty nesters and just thinking like, oh man, one time my whole life revolved around them. And now, I look forward to a phone call from them a couple times a week or whatever that looks like. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember my parents would always say, like, "You'll understand when you become a parent." And it's like now there's so many things I used to give my parents a lot of stress. And now I'm like, I
Yeah.
understand now. Like I remember when we went off to college, my mom was like, "You're not calling, you need to call me every day." And I'm like, we're away in school, like we have our freedom now. And it's like now I understand, like you now have an empty home. It's quiet. Like you're missing you have a loss. Like you literally
Yeah.
lost me and my twin sister being at home, and now it's a new transition. And you're trying to cope with that transition by wanting us to call you, but we're like, oh, you're trying to be needy. It's like now I get it more now that I'm a parent. Now it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm starting to understand this a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I remember when I went to college, I wrote my parents like a long apology letter because I started to recognize like all the things that I like didn't like about the way that they disciplined me or, the structures they had. And then I look back and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so thankful. I see all these people that like don't know how to do their own laundry or cook their own meals or do all this stuff." And like I'm recognizing, "Oh, my parents actually prepared me for this and did these things." And so I'm so sorry for being the brat teenager that I was as you were raising me.
So I want to go back a little bit. So when after you had your third child and you decided you guys wanted to expand, what did you realize that you had to do within your business to prepare for a maternity leave and prepare for adding on to your family?
Yeah. So I have this rule with all my clients of addition, or I mean, subtraction before addition. And I
Mm.
think it is relevant in our pregnancy. It's relevant in our business. It's relevant in how we delegate. So a lot of times we go and we say, oh, we just need help. We need support. But in reality, there's things in your life, there's things in your business that you can remove. And some of that is that guilt, right? That control of wanting to do all the things. And so, like, I gave you some of those examples earlier. Like, I just did store-bought Valentines now instead of homemade Valentines, right? Like that's something I removed from my life. I removed certain meetings that were unnecessary that I was having in my business. I removed offerings that were not profitable and were super time consuming in my business, right? And so it's looking at through a lens of like, it doesn't necessarily mean things are bad, but maybe they don't serve the lifestyle that you want or the season that you're in right now. It doesn't have to be a forever removal or elimination, but it can be a right now removal. So it frees up your peace and your opportunity to be able to have the most important things being managed, right? And so when you go on maternity leave, you don't know when it's going to happen, first of all, which is like wild in of itself. I mean, some people do. I never had a scheduled C-section, so I, never knew when it was coming, and so you're always just like waiting. It could it happen today, or could it happen next week, or what does that look like? So you have to prepare for that, but you also don't know what it's going to look like. I have friends who were in the NICU for months with children that were born early or had medical issues. Praise God that didn't happen to me, but it could have happened. You could have a kid who just really struggles and doesn't sleep. And so you are unable to function whatsoever after you give birth. You could have postpartum depression. There's just so many things that are unaccounted for that you have to prepare for. And so it's really important to drill down recklessly, like, what are the things that are most important that are needed right now? And those are going to be the main anchors that I only focus on right now. And I get set up in my business so someone can help me with it. There's processes in place for it. And I can step away and the minimum viable is happening still in my business, right?
Mm.
And so that's kind of what we look at is, you eliminate stuff and then you have your really important priority, as we call them, our anchors, that you're going to determine all of your structure and your systems and your calendar around.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's one thing I think a lot of us never think about, the subtraction, right? Where it's more so we look at our business and it's like, here's everything that's in our business. I need someone for each of these things versus looking at what's not working or what could be removed that can save us time, save us energy, save our business, what's not as profitable, what's a service that we can actually just get rid of. And I think, like you said, a lot of times those are things that we don't consider within our business because we're just so used to we have to do everything. We have to run everything. This has to be done this way. Now, one thing that I love that you spoke about was about within your bio is that how you're able to close your laptop at 4 p.m. and be present at home. That's a goal. When I
Yeah.
saw that, I'm like, this is amazing. And especially as an entrepreneur, someone that's running their business, most times they always say, running your own business is not a 9 to 5, right? It's a 9 to 9 or whatever to whatever. You're usually working around the clock because your brain is always working, your brain's always active. There's always something that needs to be done. So, what would you say to the woman who is running their own business, letting them know that there is a way that you can actually structure your business and be able to close that laptop and know that you can fully be present at home?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the craziest thing is we build ourselves into traps, and that was me 3 years ago, right? Like I built what I thought from the outside was the success that I wanted it to be, a multiple six-figure business, and I was leaving the dinner table to answer phone calls, for client emergencies instead of being present with my kids, which is what I started my business for in the first place, and a lot of people do, right? And the funny thing is like your business can be whatever you want. You're the boss, right? You're in charge. But yet we put so much pressure and culture on ourselves that we think like, oh, it's not a 9 to 5. We're going to be working all the time. But in reality, you can do whatever you want. And a lot of times I close my computer at 2 o'clock most days because if I'm doing pickup, that's when I go to my school pickup and then I want to be home with my kids. Now I do work some evenings when my kids have Wednesday night activities. I'm usually working from Chick-fil-A or Panera or whatever. But that's the beauty of, you're the boss, you can be in control, you can do whatever you want. And I think the thing is that we just put more pressure on our stuff. And it goes back to this addition and subtraction. Like we think we are going to do all the things. When I make my next sale or when I hit the next revenue point that I want, then I'm going to do this in my business and I'm going to add on this thing and I'm going to add on this marketing and I'm going to add on this support. And that continues to trap us and take us further away. And so, what I would say the very first thing to do is if you're starting to feel that pressure and feel that trap, like you don't have the freedom that you want, is to really get clear on what you want out of life. What do you want your life to look like? What kind of simplicity or margin or buffer do you want in my life? I had increasingly grown guilty that my kids would come home from school and I would be in the middle of something and I'd have to be like, not right now. And that was the mom that was showing up to my kids. I wanted to be able to be there for the biggest hug and say, I miss you and see their smiles and hear all the stories of what happened while they were at school. Because in reality, my kids are at school most of the day now, most of them, except for my toddler, right? And so I miss out on so much of their life. And I want them to know that they're my priority, not my work. Not that it's just another minute and they need to focus on their work. And so when I got clear that I didn't want to work after school time and I wanted to be available for them, that I wanted to go part-time in summer because my kids were home and I wanted to take advantage of that because I would get to the end of summer and recognize, man, I didn't really spend any intentional one-on-one time with my kids while they were home. I just worked and did the normal schedule and routine. I felt terrible about that. That's not the mom that I wanted to be or how I wanted to show up. And so getting really clear on that. My teenagers are home on Fridays. And so I only do, focused creative work while they sleep in on Friday mornings. And then I have Friday afternoons with my two teenagers. We watch shows, we go and play pickleball, we, eat lunch together, all of those things. And so being present for them. But when you're really clear on those things, that is the anchors that you build into your schedule, right? That's the buffers that you create. And you just start building your no muscle, which is
Ooh.
really for women, right? We just say no. We keep saying no and we recognize that things don't fall apart. We recognize that people still love us, that our clients still want us to work with them, that, opportunities are still going to come when we say no to the things that are our non-negotiable boundaries and anchors in our life.
And talking about that, I know one of the hardest things for women, like you said, is the saying no, but also the setting the boundaries, right? Where we feel like we
Yeah.
have to be fully accessible. If a client emails us at 9 p.m., we have to respond by 9:10 p.m. And all those different things.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things that it's hard for us as business owners and as women to understand that you can set boundaries within your business and it's going to still move the way that you need it to move. And like you said, if you say no to a client, if they want to work with you, they will find a way to still make it work for you. And the no would be okay. It wouldn't be like, oh, I can't work with this person
Yeah.
because they said no. It's understanding, setting the boundaries of how you want to be treated within your business, and then knowing, but also how you want them to treat you in your business. I remember one of my mentors spoke about if I'm responding to someone late at night and then I'm mad that the client keeps calling me late at night, I allowed them that avenue because I responded at that time versus the closing my
Yes.
hours at this time. It's like, I know I'm only going to respond during office hours, and setting those boundaries and being okay with being firm and setting those boundaries. And I think that's one of the things that women, it's hard for us, but it's definitely needed, especially when we're running businesses. Now, I know you spoke about, there was one thing you heard your daughter say that made you shift the way that you saw your business, right? Your business was making the money that you wanted it to make. You were hitting the goals that you wanted to reach, but then you heard one thing from your daughter. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was, the dinner phone call story. So, I made probably mac and cheese and hot dogs again for dinner, which is like sometimes your fast go-to when you don't have defrosted meat or whatever, right? Like in your house. And so probably did that way too often back then than I should have been doing to get dinner on the table. But I got a text from a client that just was, an emergency SOS, which really was not an emergency. In all reality, most of us don't have emergencies in our business. And I got up to go to my office to answer the call. And when I was coming back, I heard my daughter turn to my husband and say, "Why is mom always working?" And
Mm.
that was kind of like the knife in the gut moment for me where I recognized, man, why am I doing what I do? Like, yes, I feel successful. Yes, I'm providing financially for my family. Yes, I love how I serve my clients, but I'm not showing up as the person that I want to show up as. And my kids are bearing the brunt of that right now. And so that's when I, had decided at that point, either I need to close down my business, burn it all down to the ground, or I need to find a different way to do this. And I started restructuring everything, rebuilding things, creating that buffer and that structure. And I get to serve clients in an even better way than I ever did before. And I love my clients, and my clients love my boundaries. They have the same values that I have, and those are the people that I like to work with, is they want to also be the parent that they're called to be. And I think our world is shifting right now in that way too, is, workers are not just working for life. They're working so that they can build the lifestyle that they want and to be the family member or the spouse or the friend that they want to be. And that requires doing things a little differently.
Beautiful. So how did restructuring during that time, how did that um, transfer you into being able to educate and teach other business women how to do that within their own business?
Yeah, it's, when I found out that a lot of the advice out there didn't work within my constraints as a parent. I can't do the 4 a.m. morning routine to do, 3 hours of cold plunging and meditating and reading and working out and all the things, and then start on my business. I had to recognize that if I'm waking up before my kids, I need to focus right away on my business, and I need to get business stuff done. And then I could do all the other stuff later. And then I get my kids to school and ready for the day. Right. So my morning routine is I wake up now and I, throw on some clothes. I don't even put my face on or anything. And I get the most important things done for the day. And then my kids wake up at 6 o'clock and get ready for school. And I'm helping them get ready for school while I'm getting ready for the day, and how that works. And so it was recognizing those things and trying them and realizing that they didn't work, and then starting to do that for myself, finding the right assistant and outsourcing in my home. I think that's a big thing, is like, we are, as business owners, we want to apply these things to our business. We're fine investing money and making risks and making some of those decisions in our business, but we don't do it in our home.
Mm.
Like, how much does it cost for you to get your house cleaned? And what kind of peace is that going to provide for you, or opportunity for you to feel like you can show up as the mom you want to be when you're done with work, instead of stressing about how the house looks, right? Or having grocery shopping done for you or on auto ship, for your major things, is figuring out some of those things that work in your home life too, that helps you simplify and streamline and be that mom and that wife that you want to be.
That's beautiful. And I think that's one thing we don't really speak about, right? Where it's, you could structure your business one way, but also taking those same techniques and using it within your home to be able to simplify your work-life balance. Because if you, like you said, if I could hire someone to clean my house once a week, and now I don't have to do that for myself, and my mind is able to breathe and relax because there's a clean home, and not be thinking about, oh my gosh, this house is so dirty. When am I going to have time to clean it? But just implementing the same rules and the same boundaries you set within your business, learning a way to be able to translate that within your home environment to make home what it needs to be for you, for your husband, for your family. I think that's definitely
Yeah.
something we don't really speak about or consider or think that it's okay. And I know a lot of people feel guilty of like, oh, hiring someone to clean, like that means I'm not good as a mother or a wife. And it's like, that does not mean that at all. Like you're just delegating.
Yeah. Exactly.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
It just means you can be the mother and wife that you want to be, right? And just show up in that way. I had a client who I have a coaching client that I work with, and she's $1 million agency owner, and she is 3 years from retirement. She's a grandma and she feels like she doesn't get to spend time with her grandkids, and her husband is retired and she doesn't get to spend time with him because she's working 70 hours a week. And it was something as simple as her recognizing, like, my self-care routine at night is completely kaput because I go to bed completely exhausted and I don't ever wash my face and I don't ever do these things. And like realizing, hey, there's some things we can make to help you wash your face regularly easily. Let's buy these microfiber washcloths from Amazon that you can reuse and rinse out so you're not getting water all over your wrists and your arms. Let's find a way to end your day a little bit earlier so you make sure that that happens every single night, and let's build in that routine and that habit. We those things seem small and they kind of seem silly, but those are the things that actually like kill our energy, right? And they
Mm.
give us like more stress and more anxiety because we just feel like a failure and we feel like we can't keep up with stuff and doing all the things, or taking a 30-minute walk. Well, that doesn't have to be in the morning, it doesn't have to be in the afternoon. Like, do it at lunch. Have a phone call while you take your walk. Listen to that thing that you were going to listen to while you take your walk, or have your team meeting while you take your walk. There's just ways to streamline them together cohesively instead of them having to be separate containers that
Mm.
we can still, show up and do the things that we want to do.
You're speaking so many gems. I hope everyone who's listening is taking some
Oh, I
notes
love it.
because I'm taking notes. Now, what would be one piece of advice that you would give a mother who is maybe in the season of pregnancy, about to become a mother, or in the season of motherhood, where they feel like they're not able to balance it all? Is there one piece of advice that you can give them or leave with them?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is you're okay and you're enough. You are doing everything that you're capable of doing, and you're capable of continuing to do that and to be the mom that you are called to be for your littles, and to show up as a business owner. And so it's going to be okay. You can take a deep breath and recognize that you don't have to, burn your business down. You don't have to quit and become a stay-at-home mom. You can make it happen. And then the other thing I would say is, what is it that you really, really, really feel called to do? And what is it in your business that you're doing that doesn't fit into that? All these other things that we put in and put pressure kind of clouds the waters for us. And we don't recognize that we're putting so much time and energy and focus on the things that really aren't that important. And so if you can get clear on what it is you really feel called to and how you want to show up, and then get clear on the same side in your life, like, how do you want to show up as a mom? How often do you want to be present? Like, what kind of sleep do you want to get? What kind of attitude do you want to have? What are these non-negotiables in your life? And then just start reverse engineering that. It's not going to happen overnight. I have this major problem that, like, when I set goals, it's like all or nothing, right? And I try to do like a million things at once. Like, I'm going to work on my health. And so that means I'm going to drink a gallon of water every day. I'm going to have 2 workouts. I'm going to wake up super early, get 8 hours of sleep, and I'm going to only eat protein and, all these other things that we like to put on. And then you make it like not even 2 days. And then you feel like a failure and you don't do it any longer. You can't do it all at once. Start with one thing that you feel like is going to give you the biggest reprieve or margin. I think for moms, it's probably sleep is one of the biggest things, especially if you're postpartum or your later stages of your pregnancy, is just work on getting the extra hour of sleep or extra focus on sleep. Put your phone away, read a book, and allow yourself to just sleep a little bit more, and ask your spouse to support you if you have a spouse that is able to do that, or a family member or a friend to just come every so often and help support you in that. But focus on something that's foundational and get some wins behind you, and then you can move on to the next thing. Don't
Yeah.
try to do too many things at once, which is what we all do, right? Because you will ultimately fail. So keep it simple and just be consistent, and you'll get there. And you'll know what's the right decisions to make for your family.
Love that. So, can you tell us a little bit about your business and what you offer for mothers and for families who are looking to be able to structure their business to where they can live the life and have the business run the way that it needs to run so they can still be at home and present?
Yeah, so I'm a scaling strategist. My expertise is in, hiring and delegation and boundaries and time management and systems and processes in your business and your life. And so we do things in all three of those buckets. We help with EA, direct to hire placement. We'll help you find and source and hire the perfect fit to kind of take things off of your plate and figure out exactly what that role looks like for you. And then you can work with them independently after that placement. I do one-on-one coaching with CEO parents who've been in this place that their business is successful, but they feel trapped by it. And I'll work with you one-on-one to kind of restructure your life and your business so that you can do that. And then also we do some customized systems setup and implementation for people's businesses as well. So if you feel like your business has grown faster than your systems and processes, we can help you get that streamlined and organized in your business. If you want to find out more, we have a diagnostic that will link in the show notes here for you that you can take to figure out what is the biggest bottleneck that's holding you back right now from profit and presence. And it's about a 5-minute diagnostic. It'll give you the next step to take and kind of encourage you on being able to create that margin and that presence in your life.
Beautiful. Lauren, thank you so much for the gems. Thank you so much for everything that you have poured into me and to our listeners. I know that I've been definitely affected and learned so much from you, and I can't wait to see what viewers are able to learn from your story as well. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I loved being here. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Baby Bump and Business. I hope today's conversation reminded you that you're not alone in this journey and that there's so much power in building something beautiful while becoming someone new. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate, review, or share it with another mama or creative who needs the encouragement. Your support helps this community grow and lets more stories like ours be heard. To stay connected and get updates on new episodes and real talk from creative moms like you, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Baby Bump and Business. Until next time, keep creating, keep growing, and give yourself all the grace that you deserve.